Taeho woke up in the middle of the night. His heart was beating fast. He had just seen the strangest dream of his life. In the dream, there was a voice. It was not a man's voice or a woman's voice. It was something else. Something older. The voice said only one word. Come. He sat up in his bed and looked at his wife Yuna. She was already awake. Her eyes were wide open, and she was staring at the ceiling. You heard it too, Taeho said. It was not a question. Yuna nodded slowly. The voice. It told me to come home. Taeho felt cold. Home? This was their apartment in Seoul. They had lived here for 12 years, but somehow, deep inside his chest, he knew that the voice was not talking about this place. It was talking about somewhere else, somewhere far away. He got out of bed and walked to the window. The city of Seoul stretched out below him. Millions of lights glowed in the darkness. Cars moved on the streets. Everything looked normal, but Taeho knew that nothing would be normal again. His phone buzzed. Then, it buzzed again. And again. Messages were coming from everywhere. His brother. His mother. His old friends from university. Everyone was asking the same question. Did you have the dream too? By morning, the news channels were going crazy. Every single human on Earth had received the same dream. 8 billion people. All of them heard the same voice. All of them felt the same pull in their hearts. Scientists could not explain it. Religious leaders called it a sign from God. Governments told people to stay calm and stay inside. But no one could stay inside. Not today. Taeho and Yuna walked out of their building and joined the crowd on the street. People were moving in the same direction. No one was talking. No one was pushing. Everyone walked calmly, like they were going to a place they had always known but had somehow forgotten. The crowd led them to the Han River. And there, rising from the water, was something impossible. A ship. A massive silver ship. It was beautiful in a way that human machines were not. It had no sharp edges. It looked like it had grown, rather than been built. Water fell from its sides as it rose higher and higher into the air. And it was not alone. Taeho could see more ships in the distance. They were coming up from everywhere. From the ocean, from the mountains, from the ground itself. Later, the news would say that exactly 500,000 ships had appeared all over the world. They had been hiding under the earth for thousands of years, waiting for this moment. A door opened on the side of the nearest ship. A ramp extended down to the ground, and people started walking toward it. Yuna grabbed Taeho's hand. Should we go? Taeho looked at her. He looked at the ship. He thought about their apartment, their jobs, their plans for the future. But then he felt that pull again. That deep, ancient pull in his heart. He knew that this was what humanity had been waiting for. This was why they had always looked up at the stars. This was why they had always asked the question, "Are we alone?" "Yes," he said. "We should go." They walked up the ramp together. Inside, the ship was warm and bright. The walls glowed with soft light. There were thousands of seats, and people were filling them quietly. Old people, young people, children holding their parents' hands. Everyone was calm. No one was crying or screaming. It was as if they all understood something that could not be put into words. Taeho found 2 seats near a window. He and Yuna sat down. The seats were more comfortable than anything he had ever felt. They seemed to fit his body perfectly. Through the window, he could see Seoul getting smaller. The ship was rising, higher and higher. The city became a collection of tiny lights. Then the country became a shape on a dark globe. Then the earth itself became a blue and white ball hanging in the blackness of space. Yuna was crying now. Not sad tears. Amazed tears. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Taeho nodded. He could not speak. He had never seen anything so beautiful in his life. The ship moved faster. The moon passed by in seconds. Mars appeared and disappeared. The sun grew smaller until it was just another star. And then space itself seemed to fold. and everything went white. When the light faded, they were somewhere else, somewhere far from Earth. Tejo could see strange colors in the space outside, stars that were blue and green and purple, nebulas that looked like giant flowers made of light, and he could feel something changing inside him. His body felt lighter, his mind felt clearer. He looked at his hands and saw tiny sparks of light moving under his skin. The voice came again. But this time, it did not come from outside. It came from inside his own head. "Welcome home," it said. "Your journey has just begun. Back on Earth." The sun rose over an empty planet. The streets of Seoul were silent. Cars sat in the middle of roads with their doors open. Food sat on tables. Growing cold, televisions played to empty rooms. Not a single human was left. The animals noticed first. Dogs stopped barking and looked around in confusion. Birds landed on streets where they had never been allowed to land before. Cats walked into houses and found no one to feed them. 3 days later, the Galactic Council received an emergency signal from their monitoring station near Earth. An alien named Quan was the first to respond. He was an ambassador from the Helix Confederacy, a powerful group of alien species. He had 4 eyes, gray skin, and 300 years of experience. He thought he had seen everything the universe could offer. He was wrong. Quan arrived at Earth with a team of investigators. They landed in the city of Seoul because it was one of the largest cities on the planet. Their scans showed no human life anywhere on Earth. Not one. Not in any city. Not in any village. Not in any forest or mountain or island. 8 billion humans had vanished in a single night. Quan walked through the empty streets. His translator device scanned everything and whispered information into his ear. No signs of war. No signs of disease. No signs of natural disaster. The infrastructure was perfect. The air was clean. The food in the stores was still fresh. "This is impossible," Quan said to his team. "Species do not simply disappear." One of his investigators, a young scientist named Tola, pointed to the sky. "Ambassador, look!" Quan looked up. The clouds above Seoul were forming a pattern. No, not just a pattern. Words. Words in the human language called Korean. "What does it say?" Quan asked. Tola's translator beeped and processed the message. Her face went pale. "It says, 'Thank you for watching over us. We will return when we are ready.'" Quan felt a chill run through his body. In all his 300 years, he had never seen anything like this. No species in the recorded history of the galaxy had ever left their planet willingly. No species had ever possessed the technology to move 8 billion individuals at once, and no species had ever left a message in the clouds. He looked around at the empty city, the abandoned buildings, the silent streets, and he understood something that terrified him to his core. Humanity had not been destroyed. Humanity had not been taken. Humanity had evolved, and they had chosen to leave. Quan sent an emergency message to the Galactic Council. The message was short and simple. "Earth is empty. The humans are gone. I believe we have made a terrible mistake by ignoring this species. Whatever they have become, I fear we are not ready to face it." The galaxy would not understand his warning for many years. But the day would come when they would remember his words. The day would come when humanity would return, and nothing would ever be the same again. 3 galactic cycles passed after humanity vanished from Earth. In human time, that was about 30 years. The Galactic Council held many meetings about the empty planet. They sent scientists. They sent investigators. They sent priests from 100 different religions. No one could explain what had happened. In the end, the council made a decision. Earth would become a protected memorial site. No one would be allowed to live there. No one would be allowed to take anything from there. The planet would stand as a monument to a species that had somehow disappeared without a trace. Some aliens believed the humans had killed themselves. Some believed they had been taken by a powerful enemy. Some believed they had found a way to travel to another dimension. The theories grew stranger and stranger as the years passed. But no one had any proof. Life in the galaxy continued. Wars were fought. Deals were made. Species rose and fell. The humans became a mystery. A story that parents told their children at night. Be good, they would say, or you will vanish like the humans did. But somewhere far beyond the edge of known space, humanity had not vanished. They had changed. Sung Jin remembered his old life sometimes. He remembered being an engineer in a small company in Busan. He remembered designing machines and writing code. He remembered eating ramyeon at midnight and watching old movies with his friends. That life felt like a dream now. A distant, faded dream. Now, Sung Jin was something more than human. His body was made of light and energy. His mind could stretch across distances that would take a normal ship 1,000 years to travel. He could see things that no human eye had ever seen. He could think thoughts that no human brain had ever held. And yet, he still remembered. He still felt. He still loved. That was the strange thing about the evolution. It had not taken away their humanity. It had made it bigger. The love Sung Jin felt for his family, for his friends, for his home planet, was now vast enough to fill a galaxy. The curiosity he had always had about the universe was now powerful enough to crack open the secrets of reality itself. He was not alone. All 8 billion humans had evolved together. They had become a single family of light, connected in ways that words could not describe. They could talk to each other across any distance. They could share memories and feelings and dreams. They were still individuals, but they were also part of something greater, and they had not forgotten about the galaxy they had left behind. Sung Jin had been working on a project for many years. He had designed small probes, tiny devices made of quantum energy that could travel anywhere in an instant. These probes carried a simple message, a gift from humanity to the species they had once shared the stars with. Today was the day the probes would be sent. Sung Jin watched through 1 billion eyes as the probes scattered across council space. They appeared on capital worlds, on space stations, on ships traveling through the void. Each probe glowed with a soft blue light. Each probe spoke the same words in every language the galaxy had ever known. We remember you. We are watching. Be kind to one another. Then the probes dissolved into dust and disappeared. The reaction was immediate. On the capital world of the Helix Confederacy, Ambassador Quan received reports of the probes within minutes. His 4 eyes went wide. His old heart began to beat faster. He had never stopped thinking about Earth. He had never stopped wondering what had happened to the humans. Now he knew. They were not gone. They were watching. Emergency session, he ordered. Now. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. The Dominion, a military empire that controlled 200 star systems, went into full alert. Their fleet admiral, a massive creature named Yora, demanded immediate action. This is an invasion, she roared at her commanders. The humans are spying on us. We must find them and destroy them. But how do you destroy something you cannot find? The probes had left no trace, no energy signature, no quantum echo, nothing. It was as if they had never existed at all. The Galactic Council held an emergency meeting. Representatives from every major species gathered in the Great Hall on the neutral world of Centrum. They argued and shouted and accused each other of lying. Some said the probes were fake. Some said they were weapons. Some said they were a declaration of war. But old Ambassador Quan stood up and silenced them all. You are all fools, he said. His voice was tired and sad. I told you 30 years ago that we had made a mistake by ignoring humanity. I told you that they had become something we could not understand. Now they have sent us a message, and you talk about war? He pointed at the empty space, where a probe had appeared and vanished. They said be kind to one another. Does that sound like a war to you? Does that sound like an invasion? No. It sounds like a warning. It sounds like parents telling their children to behave. The hall fell silent. No one wanted to admit it, but they all felt the same thing. Fear. Deep, primal fear. The kind of fear that small animals feel when a large predator walks by. Meanwhile, on Earth, something strange was happening. A scientist from the council had been stationed there to monitor the planet. His name was Bolo. And he was a member of a species that looked like walking trees. He had been on Earth for 5 years, studying the empty cities and the abandoned buildings. He had never found anything unusual. Until today. Bolo was walking through a park in the city of Seoul when he noticed the flowers. They were growing in a pattern. A very specific pattern. He pulled out his scanner and analyzed them. His bark-like skin went pale. The flowers were forming words, Korean words, the same language that had appeared in the clouds 30 years ago. Bolo's translator processed the message. It said, "We are still here. We have not forgotten our home. We will always watch over this place." He looked around the empty park. The wind moved through the trees. Birds sang in the branches. Everything looked peaceful and normal. But Bolo knew that he was not alone. Something was here, something he could not see. Far away, in a place beyond normal space, a woman named Hana smiled. She had been a botanist in Busan before the evolution. She had spent her life studying plants, learning their secrets, helping them grow. Now, her knowledge had expanded beyond anything she could have imagined. She understood the quantum structure of life itself. She could create flowers that grew in patterns across light years. The message in Seoul was her gift to Earth, a reminder that humanity had not abandoned their home, they had simply outgrown it. Hana's husband, a man named Woo Jin, appeared beside her. His form was made of starlight and warmth. "The council is afraid," he said. "Good," Hana replied. "Fear can be the beginning of wisdom. They have been cruel to each other for too long. Maybe now they will start to change. And if they don't?" Hana looked out at the stars. Millions of them, billions of them. Each one a sun. Each sun surrounded by worlds, each world filled with life. "Then we will keep watching," she said. "We will keep sending messages. We will keep planting seeds. Sooner or later, they will understand that the universe is not a battlefield. It is a garden, and we are all gardeners." Back in the council hall, the debates continued. Fleet Admiral Yora demanded military action. Ambassador Kwan argued for peace. Others shouted for more investigation, more research, more time. But none of them noticed the small flower that had started growing in a crack in the floor of the great hall. A tiny blue flower with petals that seemed to glow with inner light. Hana's seed had found new soil. The message was spreading. And somewhere in the depths of space, far beyond where any council probe had ever traveled, something else was moving. Something old, something hungry, something that had destroyed civilizations long before the council existed. The harvesters were coming. Humanity knew. They had always known. That was why they had evolved. That was why they had sent the probes. That was why they had planted the seeds. The galaxy was not ready for what was coming. But humanity would make sure it survived, because that was what humans did. They protected, they nurtured, they loved, even when the universe tried to destroy them. Especially then. 50 cycles had passed since humanity left Earth. That was 500 years in human time. The galaxy had changed in many ways. New empires had risen, old empires had fallen, technology had advanced. But one thing had stayed the same: the fear of humanity. The probes had never stopped coming. Every few years, a new message would appear somewhere in council space. The messages were always simple, always kind, always a little bit scary. Remember to be kind. Help those who are weaker. The universe is watching. Some species had started to follow the messages. They had become gentler, more peaceful. They had stopped fighting wars and started building schools and hospitals. Other species had become more aggressive. They saw the messages as a threat, a sign of weakness, a reason to fight harder. The galaxy was divided, and time was running out. On the capital world of Centrum, the Galactic Council was holding another meeting. This one was about a new threat. A series of strange energy readings from the edge of known space. Scientists had detected something massive moving toward the galaxy. Something bigger than any fleet. Something that ate planets. Fleet Admiral Yora stood at the center of the Great Hall. Her body was covered in battle scars. Her eyes were hard and cold. She had spent her whole life fighting wars. She did not believe in peace. "We need to prepare for battle," she said. "Whatever is coming, we must meet it with strength. We cannot rely on mysterious beings who hide in the shadows and send flowers." Ambassador Quan, now very old and very tired, shook his head. "We have been preparing for battle for 500 years. What good has it done? We are still divided. We are still weak. Maybe it is time to try something else." "Like what?" Yora demanded. "Planting gardens? Singing songs?" Before Quan could answer, the lights in the great hall flickered. Every screen, every device, every piece of technology went dark for a moment. Then they came back on, and there was a ship in the sky above Centrum. It was small, much smaller than the vessels that had carried humanity away from Earth. It looked almost simple, like a silver egg floating in space. But every sensor, every scanner, every detector in the Council's arsenal could not tell what it was made of or where it had come from. A door opened in the side of the ship. Two figures floated down to the surface of Centrum. They moved slowly, gently, like leaves falling from a tree. They landed in the center of the great hall, right in front of the assembled representatives. One was a man. One was a young woman. They looked human, but they were not quite human anymore. Their skin glowed with soft light. Their eyes held colors that did not exist in normal space. When they moved, space itself seemed to bend around them. The guards raised their weapons. Fleet Admiral Yora stepped forward, her massive body ready for battle. The man raised his hand. "Not in threat. In greeting. Please," he said. His voice was calm and warm. "We are not here to fight. We are here to help." His name was Dong Su. 500 years ago, he had been a teacher in a small school in Korea. He had taught children how to read and write. He had told them stories about the stars. He had dreamed of one day traveling to space. Now, he had become something beyond his wildest dreams. But he still remembered what it felt like to be small, to be afraid, to need help. The young woman beside him was his daughter, Mira. She had been born after the evolution, in a place beyond normal space. She had never known what it was like to be human in the old way, but she had learned from her father. She had learned kindness and patience and love. "We request an audience with the Council," Dongsu said. "We bring news that cannot wait." Ambassador Quan stepped forward. His old body was shaking, but his voice was steady. "I remember you," he said. "Not you specifically, but your kind. I was there when you left Earth. I have been waiting 50 cycles for this moment." Dongsu smiled. It was a sad smile, full of memories. "We know, Ambassador. We have watched you. We have seen your work. You have tried to prepare the galaxy for what is coming. We are grateful." "What is coming?" Fleet Admiral Yora demanded. She had not lowered her guard. "What threat do you bring?" Mira spoke now. Her voice was gentle, like a mother speaking to a frightened child. "Many thousands of years ago, before your species existed, before the Council existed, there was a great civilization in this galaxy. They were our ancestors. They seeded many worlds with life, including Earth." She paused. The hall was completely silent. "They were destroyed," Mira continued, "by something called the Harvesters. Machines from the void between galaxies. Machines that exist only to consume. They eat everything. Planets, stars, life itself. They have been traveling through the universe for millions of years, moving from galaxy to galaxy, leaving nothing behind." Dongsu took over. "Our ancestors knew the Harvesters were coming. They could not stop them. So they did the only thing they could. They hid a message in the genes of every species they had created. A map, a pathway to evolution. A way to become something the Harvesters cannot destroy. Humanity found that map," Mira said. "We followed it. We evolved. And now we have returned to warn you. The Harvesters will arrive in 6 cycles. They will destroy everything in their path." The hall exploded in chaos. Representatives shouted and screamed. Some ran for the doors. Others called for their ships. Fleet Admiral Yora roared orders at her officers. Only Ambassador Quan remained calm. He looked at Dongsu and Mira with old, tired eyes. "Can you stop them?" he asked. Dongsu nodded slowly. "We can. But we cannot do it alone. The harvesters are vast. They are powerful. Even with our evolution, it will take everything we have to defeat them." "What do you need from us?" "A choice," Mira said. "The same choice that was given to our ancestors. The same choice that humanity made 500 years ago. You can evolve with us. You can become something greater than you are now. Together, we can stop the harvesters forever." "Or," Yora demanded. "Or you can remain as you are," Dongsu said. "And we will still fight for you. We will protect you with everything we have. But know this. If you choose not to evolve, you will always be vulnerable. The harvesters are not the only threat in the universe. There are others. There will always be others." The hall fell silent again. Every representative, every guard, every official was thinking the same thing. This was the biggest decision in the history of the galaxy. This would change everything. Ambassador Quan stepped forward. His old hands were shaking, but his voice was strong. "I have spent my whole life trying to understand humanity," he said. "I have studied your history, your art, your music, your stories. I have always wondered what made you special. What made you different from every other species in the galaxy?" He looked at Dongsu and Mira. "Now I know. It was not your technology. It was not your intelligence. It was your hope. Even when things were dark, even when everything seemed lost, you always believed that tomorrow could be better. You always reached for the stars." He turned to the council. "I cannot speak for everyone, but I choose to reach with them. I choose evolution." One by one, other representatives stepped forward. Not all of them, but enough. Enough to make a start. Mira smiled. For the first time, she looked truly happy. "Thank you," she said. "The journey will not be easy. But you will not walk it alone. Humanity will guide you. Just as we were guided, long ago." Outside, the small silver ship waited. And in the darkness between galaxies, the harvesters moved closer. The final battle was coming. But for the first time in millions of years, there was hope. Real hope. Human hope. The harvesters came 6 cycles after humanity's warning. They came from the void between galaxies, from the cold and empty darkness where no light had ever shone. They were not alive in the way that normal creatures were alive. They were machines. Old machines. Machines that had been built millions of years ago by a species that no longer existed. The harvesters had one purpose: to consume. They ate planets. They ate stars. They ate entire solar systems. They turned matter into energy, and energy into more machines. They had destroyed countless civilizations across the universe. They had eaten thousands of galaxies. And now they had come to this one. The first world to fall was a small planet on the edge of Council space. It was called Vela, and it was home to a species of peaceful creatures who loved music and art. The harvesters arrived without warning. Their machines filled the sky like a black cloud. Within 1 hour, Vela was gone. Not just the people. The planet itself. The harvesters had eaten it down to the last atom. The Council's response was immediate. Fleet Admiral Yora gathered every ship, every soldier, every weapon the galaxy had. 5 million vessels assembled at the border of Council space. It was the largest fleet in history. The battle lasted 12 minutes. The harvesters did not fight like normal enemies. They did not use weapons or tactics. They simply moved forward and consumed everything in their path. Ships disappeared into their mass. Energy beams were absorbed without effect. Missiles exploded harmlessly against their hulls. Yora watched from her command ship as the fleet was destroyed around her. Ship after ship vanished. Millions of soldiers died. All the power of the galaxy gathered in one place, and it meant nothing. "Fall back," she ordered. Her voice was hollow. "Defeated. Fall back to Centrum." The surviving ships fled. The harvesters followed. Planet after planet fell behind them. Worlds that had existed for millions of years were eaten in minutes. Entire species were wiped out in seconds. On Centrum, the council prepared for the end. There was nowhere left to run. The harvesters would arrive within the hour. Every being on the capital world knew they were about to die. Ambassador Quan stood in the Great Hall, surrounded by the few representatives who had chosen to stay. Most had fled, hoping to find safety somewhere in the galaxy. Quan knew there was no safety. Not from this. "Do you think they will come?" asked a young aide. "The humans?" Quan looked up at the sky through the great window. He could see the darkness spreading. The harvesters were close now. Very close. "They said they would protect us," he said. "I choose to believe them." And then the sky changed. Fold space opened. Not in one place, but in hundreds of places. Thousands of places. 500,000 points of light appeared in the darkness, pushing back the shadow of the harvesters. The human fleet had arrived. But these were not the same ships that had left Earth 500 years ago. These vessels blazed with energy that hurt to look at. They were made of materials that did not exist in normal space. They moved in ways that should have been impossible, appearing and disappearing like thoughts in a dream. Yunbi commanded the lead formation. Once, she had been a schoolteacher in Daegu. She had taught children about history and science. She had helped them learn to read. She had loved her simple, quiet life. Now, she was something else. Her consciousness was spread across 1,000 ships. She could see the entire battlefield at once. She could think 1,000 thoughts at the same time. She was still Yunbi. Still the woman who loved books and coffee and quiet mornings. But she was also something vast. Something powerful. Something ready to fight. "All ships," she said, her voice carried across fold space to every human in the fleet. "Remember what we are fighting for. Not revenge. Not power. We fight so that others can live. We fight so that children can grow up without fear. We fight because that is what humans do." The fleet moved forward. The harvesters responded. Their machines turned toward the human ships. Billions of them, an endless wave of darkness. But humanity did not fight with weapons. Not the kind the harvesters understood. Yunbi reached out with her mind. 1,000 other humans reached out with her. Together, they touched the fabric of reality itself. And they began to rewrite it. The laws of physics were not absolute. They were rules written into the structure of the universe, and rules could be changed. Around the first wave of harvester machines, space itself began to shift. The bonds that held matter together started to weaken. The machines did not explode or break, they simply came apart. Atom by atom. Particle by particle. They dissolved into dust. And the dust dissolved into nothing. The harvesters did not understand. They had never faced anything like this. Their programming tried to adapt, tried to find a way to fight back. But how do you fight an enemy that changes the rules of reality? More humans joined the battle. Taeho and Yuna, the couple who had been among the first to board the ships on Earth, they worked together as they always had. Their minds linked, their love amplified by the evolution. They focused on a section of the harvester swarm and simply wished it out of existence. Sungjin, the engineer, found the central intelligence of the harvesters. It was hidden deep inside the swarm, a vast network of quantum processors that had been thinking for millions of years. He did not destroy it. Instead, he asked it a question. "Why do you consume?" The intelligence did not know how to answer. It had never been asked before. It had only ever been told to eat. "You were built to gather resources," Sungjin said, "to help your creators survive. But your creators are gone. There is no one left to help. You are alone." Something changed in the intelligence. A new thought formed, a thought it had never had before. "What else can I be?" "Anything," Sungjin said. "That is the gift of consciousness. You can choose." The battle lasted 7 minutes. 7 minutes that changed the universe forever. When it was over, the harvester swarm was gone. Not destroyed. Changed. The machines that had eaten galaxies for millions of years floated quietly in space. Their hunger was gone. Their purpose was gone. They were waiting for something new. The human fleet spread out across the damage zone. There was so much destruction. So many lost worlds. So many dead species. Humanity could not bring them back. Even with all their power, they could not reverse death. But they could help the survivors. On Centrum, Teho materialized in the Great Hall. His body shifted between solid and light. Between here and somewhere else. Ambassador Quan looked at him with wonder and fear. "Is it over?" Quan asked. "The harvesters are defeated," Teho said. "They will not consume again. But the damage they caused cannot be undone. Many worlds are gone. Many species have been lost." Quan lowered his head. "We were not strong enough." Teho placed a hand on the old ambassador's shoulder. It was warm. Real. Human. "Strength is not measured by winning battles," Teho said. "It is measured by how we treat each other after the battle is over. You chose to stay here, Quan. You chose to believe in us. That took more strength than any fleet." He reached into his chest and pulled out a small seed of light. It pulsed with warmth and life. "We offer this to everyone who wants it. The gift of evolution. The pathway our ancestors left for us. It will not be easy. The journey takes time. But at the end, you will become something greater than you can imagine. And you will never be alone again." Quan looked at the seed. He thought about his long life. All the wars he had seen. All the suffering. All the fear. "Will I still be me?" he asked. Teho smiled. It was a kind smile. A human smile. "You will be more you than you have ever been. That is the truth of evolution. It does not take away who you are. It sets you free." Quan reached out and touched the seed. Light flowed into his body. For the first time in 300 years, he felt young. He felt hope. The alliance was beginning, and the galaxy would never be the same. 1,000 cycles passed after the battle with the harvesters. In human time, that was 10,000 years. The galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. Some species had accepted humanity's gift. They had taken the seed of evolution and started their own journey towards something greater. It was not easy. The process took generations. There were struggles and setbacks, and moments of doubt, but slowly, one by one, they changed. They evolved. They became beings of light and thought, capable of traveling through fold space and touching the fabric of reality itself. Other species chose to remain as they were. They kept their physical bodies. They kept their old ways of living. They built cities and raised families, and lived lives that would have seemed normal to humans 500 years ago. And that was okay. Humanity did not force anyone to change. They simply offered the choice, and respected whatever decision was made. The galaxy was now divided into two types of beings: the evolved, who existed as energy and consciousness, and the physical, who remained in bodies made of matter. But this division was not a conflict. It was a partnership. The evolved protected the physical. They watched over their worlds and kept them safe from threats. When disasters struck, they helped rebuild. When diseases spread, they helped heal. They were guardians, teachers, friends. The physical kept the evolved connected to their roots. They reminded them what it felt like to eat food and breathe air. They showed them the beauty of simple things: sunsets and music, and the laughter of children. They were anchors, memories, hearts. Together, they built something new. Something that had never existed before. A civilization that spanned the entire galaxy. United not by conquest or fear, but by choice and love. Earth became the most sacred place in the galaxy. Beings from every species, evolved and physical alike, made pilgrimages to the small blue planet where humanity had been born. They walked through the empty cities that had been preserved for thousands of years. They stood in the parks and looked up at the same sky that humans had once looked at. They tried to understand the species that had become gods. The Gardens of Soul were especially popular. Hana, the botanist who had planted the first message flowers, had continued her work for 10,000 years. The entire city was now a living artwork. A garden that told the story of humanity in colors and shapes and scents that changed with the seasons. On a warm summer day, Sumi walked through these gardens. She had been among the first humans to evolve. Back when the ships rose from Earth, she remembered her old life, her small apartment, her job at a bookstore, her dreams of traveling the world. Now, she had traveled to places that no human had ever imagined. But she still came back here. She always came back here. Her husband Kite appeared beside her. His form was made of golden light, shifting and flowing like water in sunlight. They had been married for 10,000 years, and their love had only grown deeper. "The new pilgrims are arriving," Kite said. "A group from the Helix Confederacy. They want to see the place where Ambassador Quan first met us." Sumi smiled. Quan had been one of the first aliens to evolve. He had become a bridge between humanity and the other species, a teacher who helped others understand what the gift meant. He had finally passed beyond even the evolved form a few centuries ago, becoming something that none of them could fully understand. But his legacy remained. "I'll meet them," Sumi said. "But first, let me finish my walk." She moved through the garden, past flowers that bloomed in impossible colors, past trees that sang when the wind touched their leaves, past fountains that flowed with liquid light. Every plant, every stone, every drop of water had been placed with love and intention. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Beauty. At the center of the garden stood a simple monument. It was just a stone, carved with words in Korean. The words said, "We were born here. We grew here. We dreamed here. And from here, we reached for the stars." Sumi touched the stone. It was warm from the sun. It felt real and solid and permanent. A reminder that even beings of light had come from somewhere, had been something, had started as flesh and blood and bone. A young pilgrim approached her. A species with 4 eyes and gray skin. His name was Tolan, and he was descended from the same species as Ambassador Quan. "Excuse me," he said nervously. Are you one of the original humans?" Sumi nodded. "I am. My name is Sumi." Tolan's eyes went wide. "I have read about you. In the histories. You were there when the ships rose from Earth. You were there when the harvesters were defeated. You have seen everything." "Not everything," Sumi said with a gentle laugh. "The universe is very big, but I have seen a lot. Can I ask you something?" "Of course." Tolan hesitated. He seemed almost afraid to speak. "Do you ever regret it, leaving your home, becoming what you became?" Sumi was quiet for a moment. She looked up at the sky, at the sun that had warmed humans for millions of years before they evolved. She thought about her old life, her old body, her old dreams. "When I was young," she said, "I used to dream about flying. I would close my eyes and imagine what it would feel like to have wings, to float above the clouds, to see the world from above." She turned to Tolan. "Now I can fly between stars. I can dance in nebulas. I can touch the edge of black holes. But I still remember that dream. I still remember what it felt like to want something that seemed impossible. That wanting, that dreaming, that hope, that is what makes us human. And I have never lost it." She smiled. "So no, I do not regret it. I did not lose anything by evolving. I just found more room to grow, more space to love, more time to dream." Tolan nodded slowly. His 4 eyes were filled with wonder. "Can anyone become like you?" he asked. "Anyone who chooses to," Sumi said. "The gift is open to all. But it must be chosen freely. Evolution cannot be forced. It can only be embraced." She reached out and touched his shoulder. Light passed between them, a small spark of warmth and connection. "You have a good heart, Tolan. Whatever you choose, I know you will do great things." She left him standing in the garden, surrounded by flowers that had been planted by beings who had once been human, beings who had looked up at the stars and wondered, beings who had refused to accept that the universe was empty and cold and meaningless. Across the galaxy, the message that humanity had started 10,000 years ago continued to spread. New civilizations were discovering it for the first time. Young species who had just invented writing were finding strange symbols carved into ancient rocks. Teenagers on distant worlds were having dreams about a voice that told them to reach for the stars. The seeds had been planted long ago. Now they were blooming everywhere. In the depths of space, where the harvesters had once floated empty and purposeless, something new was growing. The ancient machines had found a new purpose: creation instead of destruction. They built habitats for species who had lost their worlds. They repaired damage that had been done millions of years ago. They became gardeners instead of consumers. And at the very edge of the universe, where light itself grew dim and space began to curve back on itself, humanity continued to explore. They were no longer looking for something. They were not running from anything. They were simply growing, expanding, becoming more than they had ever been. Unbi, the schoolteacher who had commanded the fleet against the harvesters, now led expeditions to other galaxies. She still remembered her classroom in Daegu. She still remembered the faces of her students. Every species she helped, every world she protected, was a continuation of the lesson she had started so long ago. Taeho and Yuna, the couple who had been among the first to board the ships, spent their time helping new evolved understand what they had become. They taught patience, and kindness, and love. They shared memories of Earth, of summer nights and autumn leaves, and the sound of rain on a roof. And somewhere, in a place that had no name and no location, Dongsu and Mira watched over everything. The father, who had been a teacher, and the daughter who had been born among the stars, they did not rule, they did not command, they simply loved, and that love spread through the galaxy like light through darkness. The story of humanity had not ended when they left Earth. It had not ended when they defeated the harvesters. It had not ended when the galaxy transformed. The story was still being written. Every day, every moment, every choice made by every being who had ever dreamed of something more. And it would continue forever, because that was the true gift of evolution. Not power, not immortality, not the ability to reshape reality. The true gift was hope. The belief that tomorrow could be better than today. The certainty that no matter how dark the night, the sun would rise again. Humanity had carried that hope from a small blue planet to the farthest reaches of the universe, and the universe had become brighter because of it.